Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. It is October 22nd already, October 22nd, and this is our Monday Night Moms Connect call where we connect with moms, we empower people, support each other, listen, share, and it's all about raising awareness about what's in the food supply, transforming our environment, and the health of America and beyond. And we really appreciate you being on with us. We are expanding our scope. I mean, we've always been concerned about the environment as well, but today we're going to specifically talk about the environment and its relation to the future of the human race, and how also GMOs and glyphosate and everything that we've been focusing on in the food supply connect with that. And today we are going to specifically talk about Bioneers. In the first part, Bioneers, right here, you can see was the conference I just went to. Their tagline is Breakthrough Solutions for People and the Planet. And we absolutely love that. And they focus on all kinds of things, social injustice, the environment, solutions for climate change, health, all kinds of issues. So it was a really exciting event with probably about 4,000 to 5,000 people in San Rafael. And one of the main things that we talked about, hi, Steve, if you could say where you're put in the chat box, your city and your state, where you're from, that'd be great. Jess, if you could do that as well, we appreciate that. We'd like to know where people are from. Okay. And so the first thing and what I put out in the email was about climate change, right? And so the IPCC, I don't have exactly what that stands for in front of me right now, but the IPCC put out a report about a week or two ago that said that climate change has sped up, is going even faster than what they originally thought. And by 2030, we are going to see climate change of 2 degrees if we don't change our direction. And that will mean a couple of things. And that was in Justin Winter's talk from the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. She included what they said was going to happen with that. Let me just mute my phone, sorry. And that means, I believe it was a 10 feet increase in the height of the water around the coasts. So everybody within 10 miles of the coast will be directly impacted and have to move. 1/4 of the planet will be in drought, and all of the coral reef will be wiped out, and many other impacts. So I'm going to hang on, just check my notes for those in a second. And it was really very disturbing. Now, she did say, however, that there were things that we can do about that. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. So I just want to make sure that before I get there, I touch on a few of the other speakers. No, let me just I'll just go straight to it. You guys don't need to hear about about every single speaker at the conference. So one second. But I do want to come back to Rebecca Moore from Google Earth, talked about it. So, okay, so Justin Winters from the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, they have a thing called the One Earth Initiative, and they have a positive vision that we want to create by 2050, right? So they're focusing on this positive vision. Thank you, Carol. The Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change was the IPCC that put out this report. And so what they want to see is a thriving natural landscape dotted by green cities, right? For 10 billion people by the year 2050, because that's what the population projections is 10 billion people. Now, I don't think those population projections, however, are taking into consideration that the males at the current reproductive age right now, the young men have 50% less viable sperm than their grandfathers. And in certain areas of the planet, specifically China, and then Africa, and then the UK and Australia and United States, have respectively 6 to 16 to 25 years left to procreate naturally in these specific areas that were tested. So if that's a sign of what's to come, we're not going to have 10 billion people on the planet, right? That the endocrine disruptors that we are being exposed to are impacting our men's ability to procreate. And the only people, well, not the only, but some of the only people that will be able to procreate will be the elite. So people who can afford to pay for in vitro fertilization. So this is a pretty, hang on, I do want the gallery view. Okay, so this is a pretty bleak future, but we need to focus on the solutions, right? So we're gonna do that. She did give a little background about, the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation was started when Leo was 24 years old. And their mission was they asked themselves, how can we harness the power of his position to raise awareness, right? And take action and protect the planet. So they now have 60 million people that follow him. They have had over 4 billion media impressions just on the climate change issues alone in the past year. They've given out 100 million to grants to 200 different partners in 60 countries. So I'd say they're doing a pretty darn good job. And that's when she went over the paper, that intergovernmental panel on climate change paper that came out about a week or two ago, just so that people can understand that this isn't just a paper written by a couple of scientists, on the far left that want to put fear into people so that they can somehow have control over the government or, our behavior or something like that. This was 600 papers that were analyzed by 91 authors that reviewed them of other scientific papers as well from 40 countries. So this was a huge endeavor that took them years. And it was not taken lightly, right? So for people from 40 countries to work together, there's a lot of egos that have to get out of the way in order to put forth something that is meaningful to the entire world, right? So this was pretty significant. And one of the main things that she said that I remember that really struck me was that the North Pole is on track to be ice-free by next summer. This is really disturbing. This is much faster than what we thought. And that 2 degrees will cause a collapse, right, of the coral reef, a 10 feet rise in the ocean. 1/4 of the planet will be in drought. I forgot how much she said would be in famine, but a huge amount of the earth would be in famine. And so we can't let it get to that 2 degree mark. We have to keep it below 1.5 degrees. Now, the problem is that we're already 1 degree up, right? So we only have a half a degree, and that's been since the 1880s. We've risen 1 degree since the 1800s, 1880, 1800s, late 1800s. So another half a degree is very likely to happen unless we take radical action, right? And so she said that they worked with and researched with over 20 different research organizations around the world, and what they came up with was these are the three main things that need to happen in order to stop this apocalyptic climate chaos. And the number one thing is we have to go 100% renewable energy. 100%. We cannot be producing carbon emissions out of our cars, out of our factories, anywhere. We have to go 100% renewable energy. And so that means if you're not looking into this as a corporation or as a human being, you are contributing to the demise of the planet. That's just it. Everybody should be looking into solar. Everybody should be looking into electric cars. We should be finding ways to reduce our emissions immediately. The second thing was that 50% of the land and sea must be protected. That means like what is existing right now, what's left. 50% of that has to be protected and just left to nature. Now, she touched on the fact that the GMO proponents will say, well, because they're clearing the forest, right, in order to grow corn and soy to feed livestock, right? They'll say, well, we won't be able to feed 50 billion people, the 10 billion people on the planet by 2050 if we protect all that rainforest and, lumberland and all that. We won't be able to feed these people. Well, Justin Winters and the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation said, those 10 billion people won't be alive to feed if we don't protect 50% of nature. They won't have water. They won't have any food. It'll be too hot the planet will be too hot. We won't be able to live. So they have mapped out what it looks like in each country to protect 50% of the forests. And they're working on the oceans. They're not there yet. Because in some countries, like South America, more of their forest needs to be protected, right, than in say, Northern Africa, where they have mostly desert. So, their desert doesn't need to be protected. It's not drawing down carbon. So then the other thing was we need to have zero emissions from agriculture. They were very, very clear that agriculture cannot produce carbon emissions, that has to be drawn down. And she got cheers from the crowd when she was saying we need to move plant-based. And you'll be thrilled to hear that.
Yes.
We need to move plant-based. We need to have, this note, it needs to be regenerative ag. We can't have this tilling where it's releasing carbon into the air, and it has to happen. And she had a chart actually, which was, I wish we could have taken pictures because it was really clear. She showed, like, this is how much carbon we're going to have. It's right up underneath 2. If we do 100% renewable energy and we don't do these 2 other things, which is protect the forest and go to regenerative ag, right? So even if we just did 100% renewable energy, we're still going to get up to just about 2 degrees change. So that's not enough. But then she showed how if we protect the forests and, like the wetlands and the oceans and all of that, which really do, they're like the Amazon is like the lungs of the planet. That's what draws down the majority of the carbon. That will reduce 300 gigatons of CO2 if we protect the forest and the wetlands. Now, if we have better forest management and the regenerative agriculture, we'll pull down another 400 gigatons of carbon. And so that would get us down to 1.5 degrees increase and not above that. So what's really cool is that they took the initiative to say, and to be clear, and to have the responsibility, right, to say, not only here's the problem, but here's what we can do about it. And it was really awesome to see somebody mapping it out and showing, this for the first time ever, we got to see this map where they said 50% of the land protected, this is what it looks like. So governments have this tool now, and thank goodness they were using Google Earth, and she spoke right after a woman from Google Earth. They have this tool to see what land needs to be mapped out, right? Needs to be protected. They have something to go by. They have guidelines. So that was really very awesome. Hi, Rika. We're going to have you speak in a little bit. Hi, everybody. And Linda and Pam and Frankie, thank you all, everybody, for being on. So, yes, I'll touch on a few more things she said because it was really fascinating. She said that 80 cities across the country have committed to 100% clean energy. So we have cities that get this. We have leadership, that do get this and that are taking those steps. Some of them, have committed to phase out fossil fuels by 2045. Not soon enough, but still it's progress. And I mentioned that global safety net. That's the map. So if you want to look that up later when they have it out, it's called the global safety net. And it's a map that shows the land that needs to be protected. They're going to be revealing the whole map along with the oceans in 2020, the Beijing conference on the Biologique Convention or whichever. And she said that when the GMO proponents say that, well, she didn't say this part, the GMO proponents, but she said that when people say that we won't have enough food, right, to feed 10 billion people by 2050 if we don't clear these lands and everything, she mentioned how inefficient our current system was. She said we actually did produce enough food for 10 billion people last year, and we wasted 40% of it. So we don't need to grow more food or create more meat, more livestock and factory-fed farms. We don't need to do that. We need to simply not waste the food we have. We need to have better distribution. And she said, just to give me an example, and the majority of these GMO crops also are used for ethanol and plastic, right? And so she's not the majority. The majority of the crops are used for ethanol and livestock feed, right? The most of it, those two categories combined. But the part that's used just for ethanol, get this, 1 football field size of GMO corn only allows 3 cars to run for 1 year. A football field size of solar will allow 300 cars to run for a year. So wouldn't it make sense for our government to be saying, hello, all of that, desert out in the middle of our country or in the northern Africa or where, that's got to just be covered with solar panels. That should be number one priority for renewable energy, and we should have solar charging stations for our cars all over the place, and fossil fuel cars should not be allowed. I mean, if we're going to save ourselves, that's what needs to happen. So let's see. So she said that we must shift to a plant-based diet. I mentioned that also, and end overfishing. And we must shift away from big ag. She said there is no benefit to monoculture, and that small farms produce more than enough food, and they actually produce more food than monocrop culture. She said something like 20% more, something like that. Because if you think about it, an acre of monocrop is just going to grow that one corn. But somebody who's doing a farm in their backyard, they're growing peas and carrots and potatoes and vegetables and all kinds of abundant, nutritious food. And we need that variety of nutrition. We can't live off of just GMO corn, right? Plus they don't anyway. They ship it off to somewhere else to feed animals. So it's a much more efficient to support local food systems. And she was just very empowering in the end, talking about how, we are part of making this transformation possible. We are the fierce protection of each other and the planet. We are the ones that are going to do something about this. And it was very, very inspirational. And I'd like to share with you just a little bit about what Rebecca Moore from Google Earth talked about as well, because I think it's fascinating. So I'd like to share that Rebecca Moore, lives in the Bay Area, I believe, in California. She works at Google Earth, and she got a letter in the mail along with all her neighbors that showed a map, a black and white map of where they were going to, the water district was going to be hiring a logging company, probably just getting paid off, right, to forest 1,000 acres. And nobody could understand the map because the black line of the roads looked like the black line of the forestry, looked like the black line of the region. So nobody could read it, and they were just throwing it away. But she was, she's like, I'm a map geek. I'm going to map it out. So she took the data that showed the different data points, and she put it into Google Earth and made a map that showed a big red, section all along a river, all right next to homes and schools and everything where they were going to be foresting. And the community got outraged, and they started fighting against it. They got lawyers. They realized that where they were logging, many of the places were illegal. So they stopped it. And not only did they stop it, they got that area to be protected forever in perpetuity, right? To be open lands. So she really successfully showed us how these maps can make something from a abstract concept into something that's quite striking and real, realistic. So that reminded me of when this great group called Stop Shopping, Reverend Billy in New York City, like a radical performance art group. They're really funny and creative. They took the data from New York on where they spray Roundup and put it with little skulls and crossbones all over New York City. And it was like, whoa, you can see the dots of where Roundup is all over. And I think they used Google Maps, right? And so it's really great if you have that data. And I don't know if everybody saw Lisa Guermo's video she did this week about how she got Roundup out of her town. The first thing she said for everybody to ask for are the public records. So you can get your public records from your county or your city or your school, like when is Roundup sprayed and where and how often. And you can take that data, and it's really super easy. You can do it on BatchGeo, BATCHGEO, or you can also do it on Google, I believe just on Google Earth as well. And you just put in the zip code and then the information that you want in there, and it comes up with all these little dots around the map. And so you can see where everything is mapped out. So, hi, Amber. Nice to see you on, even though it says you're Carol Gervais. That's totally fine. So Okay, so anyway, so Rebecca used this to protect 1,000 acres, okay, in California. And there are other great uses. There's the Katmai bear camp. It's under Voyager Story, she said, where they actually have live footage of a bear reserve, so you can see what the bears are doing. They have tracked a certain bird in the Philippines, I believe that she said, where this bird has a certain flight pattern just before monsoons. And they prove that this indigenous bird, with indigenous knowledge, has been predicting when the monsoons were going to come for, generations. And so they've proved that through using Google Earth technology. And she showed where the logging is coming and going, or spreading actually. And she said it's like we're locusts on the plant, on the landscape. And the thing about the logging part, which ties back to what Justine Winter says about protecting the forests, is that the loggers started to understand that they were being tracked, and they used to log during the day, right? And when it was not rainy, because that's easiest for their trucks to get in and out. And then they realized they were being tracked by Google Earth, and they were being, caught and fined, and, their operations were being stopped. And so they started logging during the rain because the clouds, but then they didn't realize that they had already established radar down there. So Google Earth actually takes the information up from the radar and can find when people are illegally mining or logging or, digging for oil there. So they can actually shut down operations that are happening from the satellites, from what's going on. So hi, Julie. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to finish up some news about Bioneers, and then we'll go around and have people share. And so they're also using these maps for Google Earth for maritime, for tracking the fishing habits, right? Where the fishing boats are going, which is really important to reduce overfishing. And for an example, they use this data to show a certain company or a country, I don't remember which one, that if they protected this one certain area, that area, which was sort of like a nursery area, would repopulate the whole species that they were fishing if they just protected, I don't remember what it was for, like a year or two, a couple of years or something like that. And the company or the country didn't want to do that. But when they showed them through the tracking on the map that it was only 4% of where they actually fish, then the company or the country said, oh, well, we can do that in order to keep our entire operation sustainable, right? In order to continue to survive, we can cut back 4%. So that's how important the big data is, and why I'm not so nervous about Google gathering data on certain things, because that's a small price to pay, right? For them to be tracked, these fishing boats to be tracked, in order for the entire species to be sustainable. Now, some people are pretty serious about it. There's a president of Indonesia who's a woman who, when they have an alert, when a fishing boat goes into the wrong area there, one of the Coast Guard boats that go out, or whatever operation is, monitoring them, they warn them, they give the fishermen an opportunity to get off the boat, and then they blow up the boat. So she's serious about not having overfishing in order to protect, the livelihood and the people in her country. So there's some really great things happening. Oh, so also they have Project Sunroof, which if you want to have solar, which everybody should be having solar. I'm grappling with this because we have a landlord. I don't have control over whether or not we have solar. But if you want to have solar, you can go to this particular map, Project Sunroof, and see how much solar you would get and whether or not it's a viable thing, or you need to chop a tree down or whatever. They actually track the pattern of the sun and how much solar you can get. So there's some really great projects happening. San Jose has said they're going to be a gigawatt solar city, and I forgot by what year, but there are, because they could see that from the solar tracking that they could actually be a 3.4 gigawatt city. Yes. And
Monsanto verdict upheld.
What?
Monsanto verdict upheld. The Monsanto verdict was upheld.
Yay!
That's fantastic.
Lisa just posted it. I wonder how she found out. I gotta check the news real quick.
Who posted it?
Lisa.
Lisa just posted it?
Lisa.
Lisa.
Where'd she get it from? Okay,
I don't know.
Four minutes ago. Everybody's reporting it.
They are? It's in their news?
Yep. KTVU, USA Today, Mercury News. Yep.
Oh
He
my
did
God.
cut the award to 78 million, but they upheld the verdict.
Oh my
Washington
God.
Post. Yeah.
Wait a second. Todd, the Monsanto verdict was upheld.
That's fabulous.
That's what they're saying. It was reduced to 78 million, but still.
No, and you know what? I'll tell you anecdotally, we've got 2 municipalities, 2 cities who have already moved away from using it, not because it's on the Prop 65 list, but because of this verdict. So that is fabulous news.
That is so great. Okay, I can't show the news from USA Today because they want me to register.
Or like 78 million, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's
you for
breaking
sharing
news.
That. That is great news. Okay, I'm just going to share this page so that people who are watching with us can see that we're not just talking about it, that it just happened 5 minutes ago. They're just posting it. Yay! Look at that. Okay, so we're not happy that the award was cut to 78 million, but we knew she was going to do something, right? Yeah. And there's 8,700 lawsuits coming. So even if they all got 78 million, Monsanto still has to rethink their business plan on how they're doing things, right?
There's a whole industry of class action suits around this now.
Oh yeah, and let me tell you, there's no competition about this. The lawyers that I talked to about it after the closing statements, they said, yeah, this is going well, but we've got 4 law firms working on this. We need 44 because Monsanto and Bayer, they're going to have thousands of lawyers working on this, right? So, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Okay, so a judge has upheld a verdict saying that Monsanto's weed killer caused a worker's cancer. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. But has cut his 289 million award to 78 million. Okay, so what? All right, so she found sufficient evidence that Monsanto's product contributed to the cancer of a Benicia school's groundskeeper. Earlier this month, a San Francisco Superior Court judge tentatively ruled to order a new trial, right, in the multi-million-dollar decision for Dwayne Johnson, the plaintiff, who was awarded in August. The order says if Johnson agrees to the lower amount, there will be no new trial. The order gives Johnson until December 7th to accept. Johnson alleges, so he may not accept, right? I don't know. Johnson alleges his exposure to herbicides manufactured by Monsanto caused him to develop a subtype of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is a breaking news story. Wow. Oh, that's the best.
God, thank God.
And it's so good to find out with you guys because, you know, we've been all going through this together. So this is really fantastic. Okay, well, so there is some hope. This is all
you guys know that the entire Bayer purchase only had like 290 million for all lawsuits and litigation. So that's not including all the municipalities suing over PDCs and all of these Monsanto glyphosate trials as well. So they completely, Bayer stock is going to tank because of this.
It is. Yes, good point. That's Amber King in Washington who's been keeping a track on this and reminding everybody that they only budgeted 270 or 290? Something like 290 million for all lawsuits. Very good point. And that does not include all the others. Seattle is suing them. San Diego is suing them, right? There's 6 suing about PCBs and all kinds of other things as well. So, well, like I said before, I really do believe this is the beginning of the end of this chemical era. And this lawsuit really is a major sign that we're going in the right direction. And I want to thank everybody that emailed the judge this past couple of days, that wrote emails, that called, that signed the petition, right? OCA put out that petition. I'm not usually a big fan of petitions, but I'm really super glad that they did that one. And the articles that came out, and I think the jurors, I mean, it was unprecedented that 10 jurors showed up at that hearing to protest, basically, you know, just to show their presence in protest of what the judge was about to do. And then the lawyers were all shocked by that. They had never seen that happen before. And so that was enormous. They took a day off work. They really, you know, stood for their verdict. And when I talked to juror number 4, he was like, listen, when I went in there, I didn't really know anything about Monsanto. I was not like one way or another. He's like, now I know that I should do something about the environment. And I've had like divest from fossil fuels on my to-do list for a couple of years. But once I was a jury member in this trial, I said, now it's time to get back to work, and I divested. So he's like, he got that not only was Monsanto not trustworthy, but all of these huge corporations are not trustworthy. So I would, if I were, these big oil corporations and big pharmaceutical companies and all that, I would not be none too happy about Monsanto either right now, because they know that what Monsanto has done is a stain on all of these large corporations that are simply operating to profit, right, from the earth and not protect the people. And I was so moved by Tom Goldtooth, at Bioneers, who's a Native American, an indigenous leader. He's an elder for the Lakota tribe. He was at Standing Rock when I was there. And he said that another chief, his name was Looking Horse, I think, I forgot his first name, but another name, Looking Horse.
Arvil.
What's that?
Arvil Looking Horse. A-R.
Orville Looking Horse. Thank you. Yes, Orville Looking Horse said, Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource. And that's been the problem with corporations. They're looking at,
Oops, sorry.
it's okay. How much can we take from Mother Earth and not, with no consideration of the balance of life and, and all of that. So before we get into the news, and I know Rika's going to share real quick, I do just want to share one other thing, because we talked about the rainforests and all of that. And I just want to show everybody, if you please have a moment to do this tonight, I would really appreciate it. This one particular tribe in the Amazon, this is on the edges of Ecuador. I got to meet them. They are from the Wairani tribe. And their homeland is called Block 22 by the government as far as oil drilling. And they're like, we're not Block 22. This is not your land. This is our land. We've had it for generations. And we want you to, to basically get out and stop trying to take over our land. Oh, wait. So let me just show you what's going on a little bit here. So you can go to this page that I just showed you. It's Waironi. Hang on. Let me move this. Sorry, I can't move this. Okay. So can you see the URL? No, you can't. Can you?
Can you paste the link into the chat box?
Yes, I can. Let me do that. Okay. So this is the territory right here, and it shows they're going to be drilling like right in the middle of that. And we won't watch the whole video, but I'll just show you these are the peoples. I'll just show you this for a second. So what's happening is the government is simply just going to sell their land and drill for oil in 2 months. This is going to happen in 2 months if it's not stopped. So this is all slated to be drilled for oil. And they're using technology to protect it. They're using radar and cameras. They have everything very carefully mapped out. This is their home. And they're organizing. Okay, so I'll stop because I know we have a lot to talk about tonight. But, and I'll put in the chat box where you can go to sign this petition. It's WAO resist. So for those of you who are just watching, it's WAO resist, YO resist.amazonfrontlines.org/explore is where you can see that video, and then you can click on the top for the letter to sign the letter. And I really appreciate it because they really mentioned how we're all connected. That oil that's going to be taken out of their homeland, where they're going to be forced to flee from, is going to be brought to Richmond, California to be processed. And it's going to pollute our air. It's going to increase autism in our neighborhoods and asthma and, all kinds of thyroid issues probably with pollution. We're all connected is what they mentioned. And again, it's going back to the climate change issue. If we don't protect 50% of our forests, we are increasing the climate chaos and, basically shortening our life on the planet as a human species. So we need to take dramatic reaction. So I hope that all of you not only sign it, but you share it with all of your friends and family and ask them to please, to sign the petition and to speak up about these types of things. So, so Frankie mentioned, can you imagine if one of the U.S., the government claiming that we're going to auction off someone's corporate real estate? Yeah, right. Could you imagine them saying, "Oh, we're going to auction off Mark Zuckerberg's land in Maui," right? Or Oprah's land in Maui, or Monsanto's campus, right? We're just going to auction it off because we feel like it, because we've done some detection, right? Some satellite detection, and we've noticed there's a large bit of oil under there, or gold, or whatever. So we're just going to sell it off. Yeah, they wouldn't do that in the U.S., but they'll do it because there are brown people that don't have a lot of resources to stop, right? That's what's happening. So, okay, so let's get to Rika. Very generously came on tonight. We really appreciate it. It's her first time with us. And Rika is from the Marin County area, correct? Mm-hmm. Rika?
Just north of San Francisco.
Great, and some people are frozen on me. So can you share San Francisco area? Okay, yes. And so can you share, please, Rika, about how you had your town go glyphosate free? And while you talk, the camera's going to be on you, and I'm going to charge my battery. So you go ahead and first say a little bit about yourself, okay?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Rika, and I got started in this whole amazing work back when I had a young child who's now coming in the room. I'm in the middle of work, so I need you to go out. Yeah. Now my son is 9. Okay. Go downstairs, which is why I haven't made it on one of these calls yet, because it's a tough time of day. But anyway, I was very lucky to join a group. Michelle Perot, actually, who is very active in the GMO issue as well as this, is one of our advisors. But we originally have Mom of Marin's Against the Spray. And it was a group of moms who stopped the state of California from spraying aerially, like from airplanes, for a little light brown apple moth. And we built a coalition and stopped that, and followed on with work at the county level, stopping glyphosate very early on back in 2009. And I'm curious, how many of you are actively working to get a change by a school district or a municipality? Is that something you guys are already working on or have already accomplished? Yeah, well, that's basically how I got involved. And we are lucky in Marin County because Mama's helped create an integrated pest management ordinance at the county level that governs our park system. And the cities within Marin use the county as kind of as a model. So most of the local cities have the similar ordinance and follow our allowed list. And yeah, it was a long battle with a lot of outside pressure as an activist and multiple citizens and groups, but we really had great leadership from our board of supervisors, 3 votes out of 5. And that's how we crossed the finish line and got the county to stop using glyphosate. And it's not just in local little playgrounds either. They'd already stopped using it in playgrounds back in 2009. But they stopped in large regional parks. They stopped spraying on traffic medians, which they always said was impossible for employee safety. It just took a little extra money, blocking off lanes of traffic on Saturdays, but they showed it was possible. And they even stopped on a golf course that falls under our county IPM ordinance. So if you guys have golf courses in your area and you need resources, come talk to me, because we actually gave an award, a county award, to an amazing guy who had no training. He just figured it out and built his own compost tea. I don't know if you can see this, but it's McGinnis. We can send a link, but it's McGinnis Park in a golf course, in Marin. And they don't even publicize it because the golfers don't care. It's not a marketing thing for them, but he had to figure out how to have an organic golf course in order to do it under a county ordinance. So that's basically where we are. We're still working on some individual cities. Here's the biggest challenge I see. We have 4 cities in Marin County who have stopped using glyphosate, but they've pivoted to other pesticides. And what I'm really proud about with Marin County, and I sent Zen a link to the Integrated Pest Management annual report, but it's the county stopped using and figured out what to do instead. More manual labor, some organic products that are OMRI certified, but really, frankly, just detective work. Hey, is it too much irrigation that's causing weeds? Hey, should we take out that whole bed and sheet mulch it for 6 months and then start all over? They're doing it the right way, and some of these cities either don't have the expertise or just don't want to put in the hard work, and they're just stopping glyphosate, but they're going on and using other products that are just as deadly and toxic. So that's our battle, where we are.
Wow, well, you're doing a great job, and I'm going to share that report real quick just so I can scroll down. If anybody has any questions, you can ask some questions while we take a look at this. You can see this, right?
And I should mention, we've also tackled our school districts within Marin County, and all of them, to our knowledge now, are all pesticide-free. Not just glyphosate-free, but pesticide-free.
That's fantastic. And where is that again? What areas did you say?
Marin County, which is, again, a mishmash of all of our separate school districts. But all of them now have gone glyphosate-free. There's one that I'm a little questionable about, so I've pulled the records.
Okay. That's the first place to go, folks, is the records.
Yeah.
So here, I just want to read out what this says so that people can be clear about the language that they want to look for in their IPMs, right, of their counties. And that's: the integrative pest management is a system of managing pests using careful consideration and an integration of all available pest control tools and techniques. That's what it is, right?
Yeah, here's the challenge, though, especially with schools, because there's a statewide law, Healthy Schools Act, that requires school districts to also have a formal IPM, or integrated pest management policy. Integrated pest management does not mean pesticide-free. In fact, many people think about IPM and it includes pesticides as one of the tools. They try to use the least toxic first, but in some landscapers and professionals' mind, it's still totally acceptable to include use of pesticide. So you have to be careful with that term. And, non-toxic Irvine, a lot of people are starting to talk about progressive IPM. I just say non-chemical. Let's do the other things besides pesticides, which includes weed killers, herbicides, and things like rat poison, rodenticides.
But you can also be specific and be like a natural pesticide, right?
Yes.
There are natural pesticides like diatomaceous earth or neem oil. There are natural pesticides.
Exactly. And actually, that's why I like this report, because if you scroll down, there's a fantastic graphic where they not only show they've gone to zero glyphosate-based products, but there's a chart where 86% of all the pesticides were conventional pesticides were cut, but they've started using more organic pesticides, which are things like neem oil, things like vinegar-based products and such.
Wow, what a resource this is, guys. Can you see this? The glyphosate use has declined to zero over time. Okay, while labor continues
We
to
hit
increase.
zero in 2016.
It does take more labor, but the cost of glyphosate goes away, right? So that's not exactly charted into here. Is the cost,
Right?
Right.
And I'm happy to be a resource for anybody that's tackling this because, Beyond Pesticides and I'm blanking on his name, Chip Osborne,
Yes.
have fabulous resources where they show, if you're trying to manage organic turf, for example, over 5 years, organic turf management can actually end up being cheaper because you're not putting fertilizer, you're not putting pesticides. So, cost doesn't have to be an impediment. And the county, shows they're very transparent. So they definitely are spending more on contractors as well as staff time doing manual pulling labor. But they've increased the number of volunteer hours, and that's made a big difference in trying to basically balance out the cost.
And let's be clear about the impact on the community to this. Volunteer hours means that people are coming out and are taking a part of protecting their community. They're meeting their community members. Mm-hmm. They're making friends. They're feeling useful. Maybe some of them, frankly, are not going to commit suicide because they're out being useful and supportive and helpful and feel good about what they're doing in their community. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's impact here that you can't even measure. People who volunteer are really getting much more connected to their community than if they were just sitting at home watching Netflix. And then the other part of this, if there's increased contractor hours, those are locals that are getting paid. They're making more money. Those are more jobs versus having that money go out to a chemical company such as Monsanto, right? That money is staying locally in their community and they're hiring more people. So there's a huge benefit to the local community besides not inhaling or touching carcinogenic chemicals. So this is very, very good. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah. And what's fantastic also about Marin County is, matter of fact, this was the other award winner, a broom service. There's a stewardship model. So they invested early on in 2014-15 in hiring volunteer coordinators to engage with the public. So there's a very active school program where they're getting kids out and showing them how to pull invasive plants and what to do in school gardens instead of spraying, how to use biological controls. So it's really a multi-pronged approach. And as part of the county's decision in late 2015 to stop using glyphosate, they also gave us a grant. On this bottom of this page, you'll see, to start a community coalition to educate the public how to stop. So Yard Smart Marin is an effort that I'm leading that goes out and focuses on solutions, what to do instead of spraying. And it's been a lot of fun. So we're in the midst of spinning it out to be a standalone organization. And it's not an activist organization. It's more about going to HOAs and getting with resident support, giving them the tools and the education of what to do instead, using the county's positive experience in doing land management without conventional pesticides. So
That's
Yard
so
Smart.
So I see here that Aquamaster is one of the chemicals that's been used. What have you been suggesting to be used instead?
That was one that we stopped using. It's a glyphosate product. So they stopped using that in 2015.
What do they use in water instead of glyphosate? Use methods?
They have almost completely stopped having to use anything because the uses were handled. There was a Spartina project, invasive Spartina project, that was using imazapyr, which is frankly, our UC Extension, a member of the commission said it out loud. He's like, I never understood why everyone's worried about glyphosate. I'm way more worried about imazapyr and Garlon, which are habitat and I forget the trade name for imazapyr, but that stuff is allowed to be used in water, and it's as bad or if not worse than glyphosate. So our approach has been to manually pull and to limit or eliminate the use. So we've gotten lucky because the projects were completed once the county had decided to do this. But there are not great substitutes for Aquamaster. And that's one of the challenges. When you take glyphosate out of the toolbox, sometimes municipalities pivot to something that's more toxic. Because I definitely have bigger concerns about imazapyr in water than even glyphosate. And I didn't want glyphosate used either, but imazapyr is not a solution. So there's not really a product-to-product substitution. And that's something you really want to watch when you're trying to work with a school district or a municipality. And I just got an email this afternoon from someone on Nextdoor saying, I want to stop using glyphosate. What do I use instead? And that's the mentality we've got to change. Mm-hmm. It's not substituting another chemical. It's problem solving. Is it real? It's stop, think, protect. Is it really a problem? What's the safest solution you can use? Are there multi-pronged approaches you can do instead? And that's really the philosophy that is integrated pest management. It's problem solving with the least toxic solution.
That's so great. Yeah, when somebody asked me this question on one of our previous Moms Connect calls, my answer was, I can't imagine that anything that they would substitute for glyphosate that you put in the water that kills the plants would be good for anything else that's in the water. So I would suggest that they not use it and do mechanical pulling instead, or find another use for those weeds. Many of these weeds are, like, for instance, there's one type of weed, I forgot what it's called right now, but it's great for pig food. In China, they feed it to pigs all the time. In fact, they're glad that it's growing because then they harvest it and they feed it to pigs. You know, there's another place they use it for compost. They gather up the.
You know, Jen, though, I would say that, you know, one of the experiences I've had is there are some noxious weeds like Japanese knotweed, which is a really invasive, horrendous issue all over Europe. You can't sell a house in England if it has Japanese knotweed. And we have found spots in Marin County where Japanese knotweed is now present. So there's a task force, and I've looked at the research along with our UC Extension guys. There's not a product that's great to handle it, and you can't mechanically pull it because it spreads so easily. So there are challenging situations, and one of the approaches with integrated pest management is the idea that if you tackle something early and use the smallest amount possible, it will prevent a much larger problem or larger treatment later. I know that's not necessarily a solution we're looking for. And so one of the things that's been great is the UC Extension is working with us and this task force to also test vinegar-based non-toxic products. And I'm sure you might have heard of this too, but there is, fingers crossed, a non-toxic vinegar-based product coming to market, hopefully in the first quarter of 2019, that will be a substitute for glyphosate, and they're going to be testing it on Japanese knotweed. So I just bring that example up because I want everyone to understand that it's not always an easy or simple situation. So always try and understand any challenges that any public official who has a lot of resistance is dealing with, and help them find a solution. That's been our approach.
Well, this is super useful, and I'm going to post the link to this document right now in the chat box. And when we post this later on, we'll post it underneath the video.
What is the name of that product that you have? Not Carol Grieve.
What's that? Oh wait, we have to unmute you. Did she want to say something?
Hi. I bought this on Amazon.
20% vinegar. Yeah.
Oh, we can't hear you though, Amber. Amber, we can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you.
But we saw it.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, I'm having.
Okay, good. There you go.
I'm having some video. Just a minute. My children are being obnoxious. Anyway, I bought this on Amazon. It was like $25. It's a 20% vinegar. You just add a little neem oil to it and a little Dr. Bronner's, and it acts just like glyphosate would. but safe.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So,
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Thank you
and you
so
can
much.
buy a sprayer, and it's, we can make our own. We don't have to wait for them to bring it to market to give them more profit. Screw that.
Well,
What is that brand, Amber?
The person that's bringing that to market is not the big corporations, although they are looking into it too. I have connections with people for organic pesticides, and all of the big guys are trying to now make organic pesticides and herbicides. So they're all doing that. But yes, you can do that, but please do wear gloves, because 20% vinegar can still burn your skin. Be careful. And Julie wants to say something.
Yes.
And
What we've been doing, we've been talking to people in Boca, and they've been using the vinegar, but you've got to be careful whether or not it's wet or dry before you apply it. It has to be dry to get the proper results. And sometimes they're applying it, especially the county workers are using it early in the morning where the dew is still there and they're not getting the results.
and a lot of that's the same thing with glyphosate, and they would have had bad results too, but then they just used more. So
Right,
that's one of the problems with that too. But in Alaska, Japanese knotweed and all over the West Coast here is huge, huge issues. University of Alaska Southeast has done a ton of research on it, and you can cover it with black plastic for 3 years and it will go away. But I wouldn't buy a house if it's within a half a mile of it. But you can also cook with it. You can ferment the leaves.
Yeah.
It's a great starch product. And you could find ways to utilize invasives in other ways, because they're here for a reason.
Exactly.
Not necessarily because we've used a lot of things, but because we're a global community. So I think it's more about being a little bit more resourceful than rather, I find the timber and chemical companies have used this pitch to sell more product. It's an opening for them. And so they go into forest management meetings and sell the crap out of chemicals and tell people that are, building fish hatcheries that, oh yeah, you have to have this to have clear streams for your fish to grow. It's the most ludicrous bunch of crap ever, and actually I'm late for a forestry meeting that I'm supposed to be at.
Go!
They're trying to spray our foothills again every spring and fall, more spraying. So
Amber,
yeah.
thank you so much for what you're doing. You're such an inspiration. Single mom, 2 girls, raising a ruckus in her community, on top of things, and always bringing great information to moms across America. So we so appreciate what you're doing. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your information. Is there anybody else? Well, first, I'd like to ask if Anita Wilson from the Gerson Institute, she's the president of the Gerson Institute, would like to share some information with us, or just say hello, or whatever is on your heart and mind, because we love you. If you don't know of the Gerson Institute and Gerson Therapy, everybody should know about it, because everybody probably has a loved one with cancer and many other illnesses, right? And the Gerson Institute has been shown to support people to either recover from cancer or to work through it in some cases. And it's just amazing. There's a movie coming out called Food Cure that everybody has to see as soon as it's out, and share it and hold a movie screening for it or whatever. It's amazing. So Anita, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Zen. Thank you. This is a real honor to be here with this group, and what an incredible amount of information. And what it brings up in me is my love and strong interest for regenerative farming. And as this discussion was going on, it's like, it's either a lot of times the leaders in that movement are people that are already into regenerative farming, or this is a precursor to go pesticide free. And so when you talk about 10 billion people on the earth, even if that is greatly reduced because of fertility issues, I think about the billions of people that are soon going to be on the internet with all of the satellites that are being launched and all these huge programs. We're going to be, the projections are just in a short period of time, there'll be 500 million more people, but soon there'll be 3 billion additional people on the internet getting all kinds of information. And a lot of them are going to come from those rural areas and what we call undeveloped areas. And I keep thinking, saying, wow, if we could already be ready with education about regenerative farming, because I'm genuinely concerned about the lack of nutrition in our organic food. Just being pesticide free just is not enough.
Yeah.
Dr. Gerson tells us the soil is our external metabolism. So from that, we can extrapolate that we're only going to be as healthy as the dirt that our food is raised in. And that is if we don't ruin the nutrition then by harvesting it and preparing it. So just connected at the hip and the heart with all of you. And thank you. Thank you. Good to see you again, Zen.
Yes.
And I'll see you next week too.
Yes, that's right.
See you at Ruth's on Tuesday night.
Yes, that will be fantastic. It'll be great to connect with you. So, yeah, so we are collaborating with Anita and some other organizations. We're looking at creating a structure or criteria for healthy communities. So if you have a organization in mind that could contribute to what the criteria would look like, and I think what you've created, Rita, with your team and this whole IPM would be the type of thing that could be incorporated in, right? Like here's the types of alternative methods you could use. You could have more volunteer hours. You can have, right? Increase jobs in your community, all that kind of thing. That type of information is a great foundation and the type of community that we would love to give one of the first awards to or certificates to, right?
It would be awesome. It would be awesome to have a network of cities across this great nation that would help raise produce for Gerson patients. A Gerson patient on the full therapy uses 20 pounds a day of fresh organic. A lot of that, 15, 16 pounds, would be in the juices, but they also have 3 organic meals. But what a sense of community for a Gerson patient to come home to a community where one neighbor is growing carrots for them and another one potatoes or some of the greens, or just during these times of intense labor and nutritional needs on their part to help reduce a suffering humanity.
Yeah, so can you guys see the picture? I mean, here's what happens. A person gets cancer. 1 out of 2 males and 1 out of 3 females in America are expected to get cancer. They get diagnosed with cancer. They might be at stage even 3 or 4 by the time they find out. They go to the Gerson Institutes, either in Mexico or some other country, because they're not allowed here right now. And they're for 2 weeks with their spouse or their partner. You have to have support to do this because it's up to 13 juices a day. Every 45 minutes, you're juicing, right? And so you're juicing and you're getting these fresh organic juices. They start to, detox this stuff. They're doing enemas. They're getting everything out of them. And then they go home back to their home and their neighbor's spraying Roundup, or they don't have enough organic carrots in the grocery store, or organic apples, or organic, produce for juicing. So what Anita is proposing, and that we create an environment that supports these people that are recovering from cancer and prevents the cancer in the first place, right? So I think this is a really brilliant village vision, and it incorporates right in here with the vision that I was talking about that Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation is holding, right, for 2050. Thriving communities dotted with green cities, right, with regenerative farms and people thriving in that way. Did somebody have something to add? Was it Julie? Want to say something?
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that last week we met with the county staff in Martin County here, and they set up an IPM, and so they're really supportive of the information we're giving them. I brought in the company that created the organic polymer that actually we can take something like Miramichi, an organic substance, herbicide, and stretch it out so that it will actually stay on the plant and not wash off, which was excellent. So we brought him in from Texas, and the company president was there. And then tonight I did a presentation to the city of Stewart that has banned glyphosate to help them with their IPM.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. Yeah, and I'm so excited. Very, very soon, I promise you, there's a major media outlet that is going to be covering what's going on in Florida and some testing that we've done there. We just have to, I gave her so much science that the reporter had to delay it for a week. She had to delve into it, but I was really excited with my response because, you know, they say that thing like, oh, the levels are so low that it's not going to hurt anybody. And I said, let me tell you about these levels. So I gave her a whole bunch of studies, and she's connecting with scientists. And so, and we also have some legal issues to cover. So I'm really excited about what's going to come out, but it's going through all the proper channels. So it's taking a little longer, but that's coming out soon. And thank you, Julie, for being in contact with me about that. If it wasn't for her and this call, there would be information that wouldn't be a part of that. So I appreciate you coming on. You never know who you're going to meet on these calls and what you're going to learn and what you can share that's beneficial to other people, right? That all of you, I'm sure, have remedies, natural remedies that you've used, or solutions or ways of wording things, you know, that all the rest of us have not thought of that we can use, so we can support each other on these calls to be more effective. So
I also spoke to the lady in Boca where they're using the steam machine, and they've got incredible results.
Oh,
So,
yay! That's so
I'm trying to get her on because she's used it for 2.5 years, and she knows exactly how to use it, when to use it, and almost a month goes by before you have to use it again, and it's so cost effective. And it's only using water, so it's wonderful. So it's non-toxic, and they get the results.
That is
so. They also have an organic golf course down there, and they're using the steam machine in, I believe it's an organic citrus grove that are getting incredible results.
Wow. So organic golf course and and orange grove. And was she on this woman in Boca? Is that a residence or a community? What is it?
Boca Raton is another city about south of Stuart. It's about an hour south of Stuart.
But she's using it in the city, I'm saying.
Yeah, in the city. And also she's really upset because she does a lot of work with feral cats. And that garland that you mentioned, she said it's killing trees, it's blinding the animals. She said it's just terrible what it's doing. But they're also spraying it right on the dunes, the sand dunes, because they want to get rid of the sand fleas for the tourists. And so the chemicals are amazing. And then also when they spray it, they get a lot of drift. And the drifts are going into tourists and people, and they're breathing it. But with this polymer that we're promoting, it makes the droplets go straight down, so there's no drift. So that helps. And even if people are using chemicals, at least we can talk to the communities and say, we can reduce your insecticide use almost 90%. And still get the same results. And so we can help them reduce before they can actually get rid of it. So sometimes they're scared to make a huge transition, but we can.
That's a good step. I would just be concerned about the polymers used, for instance, in food, like in oranges. Is the polymer?
This is all organic.
It's all organic? Okay,
yep.
So okay, it's not. I hear polymer and I think the word plastic. I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist.
No, it's all organic. It's already been. It's got all the labels.
Okay.
All the bells and whistles that you want.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything you want to share or questions that you have? No?
Well, thank you for writing your article on Florida. I always support all the support. You know, I really appreciate all the support you give us.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're working. It's not coming fast enough. I'm frustrated how long it's taking.
Right. Well, I'm going to be speaking in a couple of weeks to the Miccosukee Indian tribe on water. So it'll be interesting to talk about the insecticides.
Can you record any of this? Can any of this be, can we take your brain and put it out into the world?
Your brain is doing fine, Zen. But it'll be great, you know, because I'm really hoping to help them because they get the water from Lake Okeechobee that's very toxic. And it's broken treaties because the treaty is that they're supposed to get fresh drinking water and they're not. So it's really sad. And the children have 30% more cancer down there. And so I'm trying to go down there and give them what I know that I can help them to neutralize the land and neutralize their water and lab test it and get rid of at least some of the toxins.
Oh, that's
get
wonderful.
Their health
will,
back.
Will you please tell them about apple cider vinegar and kombucha and sauerkraut, how that degrades glyphosate?
Yes. And they've been doing a food challenge before this whole event. And they're stopping a lot of the bad things. A lot of people have participated from the tribe, which is really nice. Going more organic and more natural, which is wonderful because they're used to so much fried food and salts and sugars.
Good. Okay, so they're getting the idea of growing more of their own food and eating more.
They have a good leader, so all she needs is more information. So how I introduced myself was sending your orange juice article.
Oh, great! Awesome.
That's great.
The one that's not out yet, right? I mean, the
No,
one that is
no,
out.
the one
The
that
one that's
is
out.
out. Yes.
The one that's out already. Okay. Okay, great. All right. So I just want to, before we log off, I want to share, oh wait, Anne, you want to say something?
Yeah, I forgot to say that we're finalizing getting the food care screened here in Milwaukee, and we're having Dr. Terry Mason come up from Chicago, who I happen to know because he spoke with Dr. Esselstyn when I had him come into town.
Wonderful.
So I am going to talk to him maybe about getting him to come onto one of our Zoom meetings. He's a great guy.
That would be
And a wealth of
fantastic.
information.
I'm having, by the way, I'm
Yeah.
having an organic potluck at my house this Saturday night. We're going to be showing this movie called Gaining Ground, which I highly recommend. You can find it on, I think it's gainingground.com. It's $30 though. I have to talk to them about that because it's a bit pricey, but it's a great movie about, GMOs and regenerative ag. And I'm going to give everybody a movie called The Worm is Turning. And it's from two Australian women that made a movie about the whole GMO culture and regenerative agriculture. And they donated a box of these movies to me. So I have to find a way to either do a fundraiser or a giveaway or something so I can get these movies out to all you guys and you can have movie nights as well. So I can't wait because I love our organic potluck movie nights. Everybody brings food. It's got to be all organic. And we show a movie and everybody talks. Everybody's like, we can't stop talking. It's almost like, oh, do we really want to show the movie? Because we're all talking so much, but it's always really good to watch a good movie and to share about it afterwards. So I really encourage you to do that. If you have not had an organic potluck movie night, it's so fun. Okay. So I just want to touch on a little bit of news. They have some test results out with glyphosate found in human hair. And this test can be found on our website under action and testing. And they found up to 200, up to 1,000. Let me see. No, not below the limit of, 6 samples contained above 300, but below 1,000. So there's a range. Okay. And 3 samples contained 33 parts per billion, but below 100. So it's definitely way higher than what we've been finding in urine. Okay, urine has been like up to 14 parts per billion. So they're finding much higher levels in hair. And this is more accurate because it shows, so it looks like the highest was 66. This is more accurate because it shows the past month of what's been in your body. So it's a really good measure to do this test first, then detox for a month, and then, do it again and see how you're doing with your detox. I also want to this is a sort of funny, not funny, haha, but kind of funny article to take a look at how Monsanto paid over 200,000 pounds or up to 200,000 pounds to set up a grassroots farmers operation across Europe to oppose the prospective EU ban on glyphosate. So interesting article on Sustainable Pulse showing how Monsanto, once again, paid money to have science go in their direction, right? And the UK also revealed that glyphosate, surprise, surprise, is in their breakfast cereal too. So, another example of why it's so important to test. And they found up to 499 parts per billion in their Quaker Oats. And 137 in their Cheerios, right? So the glyphosate spraying is not partial to the US. It's happening all across the United States, and we have a global food supply, right? So a lot of our grains from Canada and the US will be made in products in Europe. So this is a global food supply and a global problem. So another article on GM Watch covers how this doctors group confirms that toxic pesticides are not needed in parks and green spaces. So this is a bunch of doctors getting together reporting this. So this is just another article that you can put in your arsenal, right, to bring to your towns and schools. And we're just so grateful for groups like this, GM Watch, Claire Robinson, and all the people there. They really very carefully gather the science and share it in a really responsible way. Let me see. This was the Marin County thing again. Okay. So, and I just want to point out again that if you have any questions about studies, we have reorganized our data page so that you can find the impact of glyphosate herbicides by category. So the first one is humans and animals, insects, soil and water and farming, marine life, reproductive issues, gut and behavior issues, organ, liver, and kidney disease, carcinogenic effects, neurotoxic effects, glyphosate testing. I'm going to have to add the air, and we got to add the hair test in here. Resource papers and scientist letters, impact of all different kinds of pesticides, GMOs, and solutions, and benefits of eating organic. So we've got all kinds of studies in here. And okay, and then one more time, I just want to remind everybody to please go to the link that I posted, the WAO, the rainforest thing. I just have to show you. This is a necklace I got from the moms. There are the moms that were there that I met. This big seed right here comes from a plant that they use to protect their skin from fungus because it's very wet there, right? So they use it, put it in between their toes and on their body when they have skin issues. And they just made beautiful jewelry and sold it for way too little money. But, I made sure to support them and help to support what they're going on through in the rainforest. So that's waoresist.amazonfrontlines.org/explore. And it makes a difference. I mean, look what happened with the Monsanto trial. I have a feeling that people emailing and calling and sending letters to the judge may have made a difference, right? And the jury showing up in the trial room and protesting the reversal of that. Yes, Julie.
Okay, I want to tell you, we also toured 2 farms where the animals were getting sick, and we found out that they were either using GMO alfalfa, which is not being labeled. And when they buy it from the feed store, we did a check on that, and they could not tell us where they were getting their alfalfa, but we know it was GMO alfalfa. And also, they were spraying, there was too much glyphosate being sprayed around. So they're stopping that now, and they're going to help their animals, which is really nice because that's 2 large farms.
That's great. That's really good to hear. Yeah, that we've got to get some confirmation on these types of things more with the farmers. I've seen picture after picture of the insides of these animals that are eating GMOs, feed spayed with grains. But I need to communicate with the farmers better because they need to show me what it's supposed to look like. We laymen don't know when a liver is like diseased looking. You know what I mean? We need to see what a liver is supposed to look like, and then the diseased liver in order to show like this is what it's, what it's supposed to look like, what the difference is.
But the farmers are having a really hard time knowing when they buy the hay or the alfalfa, the bales that they get, they don't know if they're GMO or not. And even we went to the feed store, and then they gave us the name of the alfalfa suppliers, and even they don't know. So it's
because there's no labeling required. The good thing that when I talked to Pat Trask in North Dakota, he was the one who went to the Supreme Court to fight GMO alfalfa. He said that the majority of farmers won't use GMO alfalfa. It's not really the norm. I'm not saying this is a good thing. There shouldn't be any at all because it's a perennial and because it drifts. So actually the bad news is that it drifts, right? So that even if anybody's growing it, it can contaminate another field. And there can be weed-resistant seeds mixed in with that GMO alfalfa. So then you've got the weed. That's how the weeds are spreading, right? And it was very sad. He fought, and they won actually Supreme Court case. But then 2 years later, the FDA got so pressured by corporations that they just overturned it. Simple announcement: we're overturning the ban of GMO alfalfa.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So ridiculous, but we can't, so we have to have some way for these people to know, because they're going to feed alfalfa. They want to feed alfalfa, but we've got to have some way to identify where it's coming from or where the seeds are coming from.
Yeah, we've got to call on the farmers to have integrity, the people that are growing the seeds, right? To have the integrity.
It's not fair that these animals are getting sick and with cancers and stuff. It's just not. Yeah. It's not one or two. Well, we're talking about a dozen.
And so Julie and everybody, for anybody that ever has cases like this, right, where she went to 2 farms, the animals were getting sick, they're eating GMO alfalfa, and now they're going to switch over. Now, if you could get back in touch with those people after they stop eating GMO alfalfa and their animals get better, I would love a quote from them, and we could make a meme out of that, and we can get that out to the farmers to find out this information.
Right. We also
All
have
of
to,
us
we also
sharing
have
that.
to treat the land. We're treating the land as well because there's so many chemicals that have been put on the land. So
Yes.
not only are it's in the grass, but it's also in the feed.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier, that you have a product that you can put on the ground that helps to restore the integrity of the soil and helps the plants grow more safely, right?
Right, and it neutralizes the glyphosate.
And what's that called again?
It's called NutriSmart.
NutriSmart. Okay, right. And yeah, so we're looking into all the different things that you've brought to us. I was just traveling for the past 4 days, so I can't.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, okay. So we're looking into it all. So thank you so much. Anyway, so my point was, if you have it's something that happened where there was a shift, something happened to for the benefit of the people involved, I need that quote. So Anne can make a brilliant meme out of it, and we can get it out to, thousands and thousands of people see what we share, right? And we need to be the ones to share it. For instance, that study, the 2010 study from Nigeria that Stephanie Seneff shared, that showed that glyphosate that Acetobacter, which is in apple cider vinegar and sauerkraut and kombucha, actually degrades glyphosate. It's one of the very few bacteria on the planet that breaks apart glyphosate and makes glyphosate be gone, was put out into the world in 2010. It's 2018 and I'm just finding out about it. And I had to go to South Korea to find out about it, right? Like, we need the science to get out there, and we need good graphics and short, concise ways to talk about it. We need a quote from a farmer, a quote from a scientist, right? We need that information to get out there. So please, I'm asking all of you to be people that help gather up those quotes and just say, hey, Zen, I just talked to this farmer, South Dakota, and his name is blah, 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 or if he doesn't want to be named, we can just say farmer from South Dakota. And he said that when he fed his cows this feed, he had a 30% whatever drop off or loss. And then when he stopped feeding it, they had a 30% increase of better health, whatever, like stats like that, little sound bites and clips and quotes that we can use, we can get out into the world. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And yes, Rita was very glad to be on the call, and she left her information, if you can see it in the chat box, momsadvocatingsustainability.org. They have a healthy schools toolkit, and the website also is Yard Smart Marin, yardsmartmarin.org. And they actually worked with another organization and got a grant. It was like a big grant in order to be able to do this. So that's why you can see that, right? What organization was it, Rika?
Actually, the county gave us a grant, and then we were able to get an additional grant from the SF Estuary Bay.
You guys are doing this in such a smart way. I have to really thank all of you for how you've pulled together and you've put together such a professional presentation, and all of the, you have to set aside your ego, right? When you're working with other people on doing these kinds of things and how it should look, and you've got to compromise and you've got to work things out. You've got to listen. And that's really a triumph of human spirit. And I really acknowledge you guys for working together and making such a brilliant thing happen. Thank you so much.
You are inspirational, and everybody on this call is doing great work. And I thank you and hold you close.
Great. We do too. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for being on the call. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Ann.